Next of Kin pays its respects to our oldest and greatest storytellers, the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 10, the final episode in season 1. We had to go out with a bit of a bang. So today my guest is Samantha Jade. She's a pop star, a recent finalist on Dancing with the Stars. Thank you very much. And I reckon one of Australia's sweethearts. I wanted Sammi for Next of Kin for ages because she represents so much of what Next of Kin is about. Our values are captured in the KIN of kin, the K standing for kindness, which Sammi has in spades, the I standing for impact, which she certainly has on the world and the country and her community in her art and her music and the work that she does. And the N is for nobility of character. And that basically just means having personal qualities that people admire and that you're the same when no one is watching. And that's what I reckon Sammi is. I think she's exactly the same when she's behind closed doors as when she's publicly facing. We talk about her incredible career and her, and mainly my, frustrations that she hasn't yet managed to crack that big mainstream success in some ways, as well as the loss of her beloved mother, Jackie, and what her best friends add to her life. Sammi is probably deeper and more thoughtful and more clever than I think you'd expect from a quote-unquote pop star. And I suspect that whether you know her and her music or not, you're going to love this chat. Here is Samantha Jade. Sammi, I told my 7-year-old that I was going to interview you today.
Yeah.
And we were looking through your Instagram and I was showing her who you are. And I said, do you have any questions for Sammi? And she said, yes, but you have to ask them first.
Okay.
So I'm asking you her questions first. And I need to premise this by saying that she hasn't quite got the hang of questions yet.
Yeah.
So she started strong. Her first question was, how are you? So how are you, Samantha Jade?
That is such a nice question that I feel like we're not asked enough these days. I'm good. I'm okay. It's been a year. Like this has been a lot this year. I don't know if you believe in the moon and the energies and all the things, but there's a shift in this year and I've definitely felt it. So it's been a bit of a heavy year in some ways. Just for me personally, but I'm good. I feel like I'm coming out the other side of it and things have really landed. So it's nice.
That's nice. That's a nice feeling. Her next question was, you're so pretty, which I explained to her is not actually a question.
Yeah.
But then she came good at the end with this. What's your favourite song to sing? Yours or somebody else's? If you had to pick one, what's your favourite song to sing?
I love that question. That's a great question. She got there. There's a song called Bring It On Home by Sam Cooke. It's a kind of an older song. I love singing that song. I don't know why. I love that era of music. It's always been my favorite era of music. And I love singing it. It's soulful. My singers and I do it in 3-part harmony and it's like really special. And then of my own, I would say that there's so many for so many different reasons, but What You've Done to Me always gets such a buzz from the crowd. So it's really special. I feel like people have an ownership with that song. They feel like they were really there from the very beginning of that, and they really were. So, yeah, probably that one of my own.
Oh, it's such a banger. I was having a little listen to it this morning. Okay, so now we've dealt with the hard questions. Let's get stuck into the B side of the interview. So obviously, huge congratulations on Lovesick Volume 2. It must feel so nice to have some new music out there for people to connect with. I've been loving Peachy. I love Minutes to Midnight. New Me made me a bit teary this morning.
Oh,
like you've really taken us on a bit of a journey.
You know what? We really did. That was kind of the idea. I was like, okay, so whenever you put out a body of work instead of just a single, you kind of want to, you do want to tell a bit of a story, but it also has to be authentic to you and authentic to the writers in the room and the project. And this time I was like, I really just want to do, because Lovesick Volume 1 there was a lot of kind of I think I was trying to find my confidence at that time when I was writing that song and that whole record. And it was a little bit about that, the hurt the industry had caused me and what I was going through. And this time I was a little bit like, I want to write about love and all the stages of love. I really wanted to write about all of those feelings. And I think that we really nailed that, because when I listen back, I'm like, oh, this is never about the same type of love. It's all about different loves.
I love that, because as I was listening to New Me, it's that it can be about romantic love, it could be about friendship love, it could be about the grief of losing somebody that you love, or a life that you thought that you might have. You're right. It's so complex.
Oh, yeah.
This idea of love, and particularly of loss. Thank you for mentioning the hurt that the industry has caused you, because I have this question for you that I haven't been able to quite work out how to ask without being insensitive to the incredible success that you have achieved. To even make a living in the arts and be able to provide for yourself and your family is such a gift, definitely, but it's also a real privilege. The vast majority of people who work in any of these industries, whether it's acting or speaking or singing or dancing, more often than not have to support themselves with another career. So they're essentially trying to do two things at once.
Yes, mostly, yeah.
Yeah. And you have been able to carve out a career whereby you can spend the vast majority of your time doing what you love.
Yeah.
From the outside, it really feels like the music industry has changed, as it has across much of the arts.
Yeah.
From a total outsider's position, it seems like we're seeing artists touring more, and I wonder whether that's because the revenue model has changed. So there are no album sales anymore. There's streaming revenue, which I imagine is very different to somebody going out and buying your album.
Mm-hmm.
Is it harder to make a living in music now?
I think depending on where you are, on the scale, I think so. I mean, when I first started and I got signed in the States when I was like 16, those were the days of, really, really, really big deals financially. So you would get a huge advance. I think that still happens and for a certain caliber of artist and like on a really big scale, but not always. And so, and also now we want to own all of our stuff. I think we've gotten to the place where we're like, oh, you want to own your work and your art. And I think, I've never, ever, ever wanted the money or the fame. That's never been what drives me in my career and what I want from this. I've never put money first or been like, I need to be paid. Because in this industry, and it's not a good thing at all, but it's just how it was in the beginning. You do so much for free. I mean, I didn't get paid for a show until I was like 26. I'd been doing
Wow.
Yeah, it was just everything was promo. Everything was like, well, if you do this, it's great visibility. And money is just not really a thing. It's definitely not at the forefront of what you do. If you're an artist and you love what you do.
Well, because you don't have the power yet, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And there's a lot of heavy hitters and big people who are above you and saying to you, if you do this, then you can get to here, and you believe them. And, I'm from Perth, I'm from Lockridge, I'm not from a musical family. I knew no one in the industry. So, yeah, it takes you a while to understand the business side of things. And yeah, we are in a weird place in the music industry. I mean, streaming is, you make like nothing of streaming. So it is important to wear all the hats. I weirdly think it's going back to kind of what it was in the days of Marilyn and people like that, because they kind of had to do all of the things. They weren't just, they were in movies, they were singers, they danced, they did everything. And you kind of have to do that now. And also within the industry of fashion and like I had a makeup line, and you just kind of have to be looking for all different avenues.
Yeah, it's so true, which is what somebody like the Kardashians have done so well, right? For people that were quote unquote talentless or without talent, they've
Yeah.
managed to do pretty bloody well.
Well, that's right, and their business, their talent is business. Like, they are brilliant. Kim has made an empire, and and they all really have. They've all been so clever, and no matter what anyone says, they are always references for people's looks. Always, like, I love when they did this on the carpet, or I love this outfit, or yeah, they've done really,
Mm.
really well. I have so much respect for them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with
Yeah.
you. I've shared this with you before, but my dad was a big fan of yours, which would make people who knew him really giggle because he's not the kind of man to look at him and to know him. You would not think that he is a pop music fan. He
Yes.
loved Taylor Swift, he loved Ed Sheeran. And I remember distinctly, I don't know if I've told you this part, 'cause I don't know if I've spoken to you since then.
Yeah.
When Dad got really sick, we
Yeah.
went over to Rottnest for a few days, an island close to both of our hearts, little island
Yes.
off the coast of Perth where we used to go on, family holidays. And I took my girls over there. My husband and I took the girls, and my dad, who was so sick at this point, got himself on the ferry and came over to have a night with us. And he
Wow.
was so unwell that he, could like get to the house and then he would just have to lay down for,
Yeah.
hours. But he
Yeah.
would lay out in the lounge room so that he could still see us and watch us and be around us and be a part of it.
Yeah.
And we started talking about you,
Oh,
and he gets his phone and he goes, just listen to this song. And he puts on Bounce, which was his favorite song of yours. And I've got this image of him laying on his back on this couch in Rottnest, and he's got his phone in one hand playing Bounce, and his other hand is like doing this, which if you can't see me because you're listening, my hand is bouncing in the air and moving it through the air. And he used to get so frustrated because he was like, that is an internationally best-selling pop song. Like, he was really frustrated. And here's the piece that felt like indelicate for me to put to you, because I don't want to be disrespectful of the incredible career that you've created, but he and I both shared this idea that I know that lots of your fans share, which is like, you have all of the things to be on the same pedestal as the Kylie Minogues, or,
yeah.
those pop stars, that like those songs are that good.
Thank
And you are that good. Like, there's nothing missing. And we're like, why? Like, you should be in the billions of streams. Do
you.
you feel, does that irk you? Because you're such a kind and humble person. And I know that you're incredibly grateful to get
Of
to do what you love.
Yeah. No, I am. Yeah.
But what's your internal dialogue like
Oh,
around that?
first of all, thank you. That is so sweet. And that story about your dad is so sweet. Oh my God. That is so sweet. I love that. I do have those moments where I'm like, why? Why is it not on another level? Absolutely. I mean, you know, with anything you do, I mean, even if you're working at a company and you start, as I don't know, the janitor, and then you move to marketing, and then you want to want to eventually be the CEO. You have dreams. There's levels.
Mm.
I I've always wanted that. I think a lot of Australian artists, you want to be accepted outside of the country as well. You want to have success in other places. You want to tour internationally. Like, that's always the dream. And like you said, not to say I'm not grateful for what I have, because I'm incredibly grateful and very aware that it's not easy to even do what I do, right? And like, that's been great. But yeah, of course. And I think, you know, you kind of can't solve that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's missing. I don't know. I do think that I haven't had a champion. A lot of the people that have been mentioned had a real champion. I don't know if I've ever really had that. I've had incredible people in my team, but champions in those places. Kylie, she had a real champion in Michael Gadinsky, and he was able to really push her and help her. And he was at such a level that he could open doors and really believed in her. And I kind of feel like through my career, I haven't really had that person of that caliber that's believed in me. And I've kind of gone from, I went from, you know, I did obviously, I was signed when I was younger. Then those people ended up, that ended up not working out very well. And then I went on to do X Factor, and that was really great. And then you get signed to Sony, and then you kind of keeping your head above water.
Mm.
And then I kind of, when I left that deal, have kind of now finally moved into a place where I'm in control. But for a long time, I didn't have that. So I think that's what it is. I think maybe, and maybe it's just timing, and then you have to give it to the universe that what's meant to be is what's meant to be. So yeah, but I do, and of course, like I have these moments. I've been very vulnerable about this lately because I'm like, why not? You know, I go in and out. I am a bubbly person, and that's just who I am. And God, if I wasn't like that, I remember my mum would be like, "What's going on with you?" You know, because that's just who I am. I sway that way of being finding the good. Um, but it does get tough sometimes, you know, and you work really hard on your art, and you really, really try, and you know, for the most part, do it alone. A lot of it. Me and my friend Zach shot all this footage for this record by ourselves. We didn't have help. Like he's shooting it, I'm doing hair and makeup. We're styling it the night before, buying stuff with a small budget at, you know, the stores around LA at the time, and shooting in his lounge room. And, you know, everything is just like, okay, let's just do this project to get it out there. And you do have these days where you're like, "Oh, why am I bothering? Why am I bothering? Who's going to care?" You do. Everyone has those. So picking myself up to then continue sometimes can be really, really tough.
Mm. I really feel you in a completely different space. And, you know, we're at a similar age. I'm a couple of years ahead of you.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot lately about the power of midlife.
Yes.
And you're nowhere near midlife. I'm barely near midlife,
Yeah.
depending on crystal ball, how long we get.
Well,
Um, but I think that we have stepped into a new era where women are really celebrated in midlife, and that we are starting to really respect the careers and the bodies of work that women have
yeah.
created, you know, seeing more older women on
Yeah.
screen. And I remember asking one of my mentors, I said something like, you know, I'm going to be 40 soon, and I thought I'd be further along than I am.
Yeah.
And he said to me, it's not about how old you are, it's about how long you've been doing it. There's
Wow.
power in how long you've been doing it. It was just that sort of reframe that I needed of like, wow, I've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
something really powerful in that. And I there's not really a question here, but I guess I just wanted to say kudos for, like, it means that you really love it, right? If you're going to shoot it with your friend and buy the things and do it regardless of budget, it means that it's in you. I don't think you can fabricate that. Like,
No,
it's like you have no choice.
that's exactly right. You've got to go back to what you love about it, what you love about what you do. And I always go back to literally singing with a piano, with a guitar, like a cappella. I love that. That is when my soul comes alive. So I'm like, that's what's keeping me there. And also the people that do follow. And I think you sometimes give attention to the people who don't, too much attention to them. And it shouldn't be about those people. It should be about the people that are in your corner. So that's something that I've only in the last few years really tried to reframe my mind around that too, of being like, why am I always caring about people who don't care and trying to win over the people who don't necessarily like you? That's fine. They don't need to. Not everyone needs to. Focus on the people
Yeah.
who do. That's a big lesson.
Oh, it's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. You mentioned not having a big champion
Yeah.
before. And then from what I understand, you had a huge champion in your mum
Oh,
that you sadly lost. She sounds like she was your biggest champion. And, you know, that makes you and I both part of the same really crappy club, which is the Lost
yes.
Parents Club. Tell me about your mum, Jackie. What was she like?
Yeah, my mum she was really special. She was very, very special, and she was special to everyone. So being her daughter was just like, I really won the I really won the lottery here. She just used to build people up. That was her thing. And she would just compliment everybody. She would make you feel like you were the best thing ever. And she would find what your special superpower was. And then she would completely build you up with that in mind. And you would leave being like, I am amazing. And we need more people like that in the world, right? She
Mm.
and she really, of course, did that for me. I mean, she would just always remind me because obviously your mum, that's the first call. Um, and whenever I'd be feeling like low or down, or I remember an X Factor and I would get in the bottom two and then I would, get off stage and just call my mum and be like, Australia hates me, and she would just build me back up. She'd be like, no, 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 this is a test. This is great. You're going to move past this. You're going to be stronger for it. She read so many books and watched Oprah so much. Her language was perfect for those moments. She really knew how to speak to me. But yeah, she was a very special human. And you don't meet people like that very often. People are often, of course, going through their own stuff and find it hard, I think, sometimes to come out of their bubble. And she was really good at that and made sure that I would be good at that too. So I really try and live my life that way.
It's a real skill.
Yeah, such a skill. Yeah, you're so right.
I reached out to our mutual friend, Amanda, because I wanted to get some context about what that period of time was like for you and what it was like for her to watch her best friend going through that, because you guys were very young. And I don't think that anybody can go through that and not be forever changed, whether you've watched it and been in a relationship or in a friendship with somebody who's gone through it or gone through that loss yourself. And Amanda said to me, Jackie was a light in everyone's lives.
Yeah.
She said, not just for Sammi, but for me. She said, I could sit there and talk to her for hours. And you said that she was your first call when something's good, first call. When something's bad, first call. When you're bored, first call. Like, sounds like she was your person.
Yeah.
My dad was my talking person too.
Yeah.
My mum is as well. I call her, frequently. We speak every day. But Dad was too, and especially when something was a bit tricky and we needed to kind of pull it apart and put it back together. He was my talking person.
Yeah.
How did you and do you fill that space? Because I remember when I lost Dad thinking, who am I going to have those conversations with? It's like we connect on a level that is different to any other relationship that I have. Have you been able to find that elsewhere, or is that something that was just reserved for her?
I feel like that's I totally understand that because you go through certain things and you're like, oh, it never stops. I mean, it's been 10 years for me now and I'm still like, I wish I could call my mum about this. Mum, she would just know what to say. I still cry for my mum when I'm going through hard times. But I think definitely I'm so lucky. I'm very close to my dad. So I have him and I weirdly think that when my mum passed away, my dad I think he understood that he needed to take on both roles a little bit. And he was always someone that I would call as well. I've always been really lucky, like you're saying, like you've got both. And we're so lucky that we have that. A lot of people don't. But yeah, I think he's even become better at speaking. Like my dad, about emotional things and about, he's really great. But I've got my best friends, Zach and Amanda, who are just like, lights in my life. And who knew her very well. I think that's important too. Someone who says, what would your mum say about this? Or I feel like your mum would say, that's really important because I really knew her. Also, Pat, he didn't know her, but he's very emotionally connected and intelligent. I think that, it'll never be the same because there's something about your parent because they brought you into this world. There's that. There's also the thing that they've known you through every single stage of your life. So they know what makes you tick. They already know what you're going to think before you think it. And there's never anybody who really, really gets you that deeply. And I just think I had to really accept that. I think for a while I was searching for it and maybe putting people in boxes that I thought could be that. And then certain things happen or life goes on and you go, no one's really meant for that box. That's just not a box that anyone can really sit in. So you can take what you can from other people and you can try and find and fill gaps. And I think that's definitely doable. But then you just have to know that, I had the time that I had, and I still talk to my mum all the time. And I still believe that I get, like, depending on what you believe in, but I can hear her saying things sometimes in her voice. And I always just put it down to the fact that it just must be her from whatever realm she's in now, saying things
love
to
that.
people like that is so something she would say.
That's only just started happening to me.
Oh, wow.
You're a bit further along in the grief journey than me. You've just gone 10 years, right?
Yes.
Since you lost your mum.
Yeah.
I'm not even at the year mark yet. So I'm still in that weird kind of find your feet stage. I'm kind of through the adrenaline bit at the beginning where I've done all of the things and I've sort of started to recover from having cared for him at the end there, which was really kind of hard yakka. And I've only really just started to deal with the emotional reconciliation of having really lost him. And just for the first time a few days ago, his voice popped into my head on something. I was having a really tough day and his voice popped in and I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then I tried to ask him a couple of questions and then I got caught up in, what am I saying these words or is he saying, like I kind of got stuck in the how of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to sort of exploring that more. But one of the things that I was very lucky to have been able to do with Dad was that I recorded his voice a lot. I interviewed him. I recorded him reading books to my children. I was really bottling him up because I knew that I was going to lose him.
Yeah.
Were you able to do any of that 10 years ago? It was different. We didn't have an iPhone in our hands constantly capturing everything. Do you have some things that you can draw on with her voice?
We do have some funny videos from her in hospital. She was hilarious. My dad has always been so brilliant about filming things. My dad has filmed every single Christmas since I was like 2 years old. He had a video coming up. He always is filming, and that was like, I remember that from birthdays, things. My dad would always be behind the camera because he was so big on having footage because he came from India to Australia when he was 7. They don't have a lot of photos, videos, anything. So he was really big on like, I want to capture memories. And he's been so great about that and was really good about that with my mum in hospital. So he has actually a lot of footage on his phone. But yeah, it was different at the time. We weren't as attached to our phones. And I think with us, like we didn't know what the outcome was going to be because she went in with a cold and then just never came out. So it was such a, she was this healthy person who, we used to call her goji berries and almonds kind of girl. Like she'd always make the healthy choice. She didn't drink a lot. She was like always going on walks on the beach. Like it was just when we found out she had cancer, we were like, wait, what? Because she was just such a healthy human. You just never know. And she went in and never left the hospital. Like some people get to, have their people come home or, and there was 3 times because it was so up and down that they were like, oh, maybe she can go home. So we started like redoing the house for her and like putting in like wheelchair kind of safe things for the shower and things like that. And she just never really made it home. So we had to grieve loss and we had to grieve that as well. But we made it our home. We made that hospital room as a home. We had to. Like, oh my God, there was all the people there. It was like we were throwing parties every week. People in the hospital were like, this is great. Your room's amazing. It wasn't sad. We knew what we were dealing with, but we were like, no, we need to make this happy and bring as much joy as we can. But I think that the voice thing, I hope that I know it will get it better for you because I was a bit the same in the beginning. I remember being like, oh, I'm just creating this. But I think once you allow it to just be what it is and not ask too many questions about it and not because I was the same. Once I just allowed it to be like, if it isn't her, then it's really comforting for me anyway. So whatever it is, I'm going to allow what it is. And I really do think now it is her because it's certain things where I'm like, that is so something my mum would say. That I couldn't even think up because she was hilarious. I hope that gets that easier. I know it will.
Same. Thank you. I want to dive into that diagnosis piece a little bit because I was having a bit of a fossick online. I was trying to work out what the diagnosis was, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of clarity around that. Tell
Yeah.
me what that was like. Where were you? How did you find out? How did she find out? You said that she went in with a cold.
Yeah.
She's this incredibly healthy person. Tell me about that kind of, because for anybody who's been through something like this, there's a real data point in the timeline, which is like pre-illness and post-illness. It's like everything changes in that moment. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah. I remember I was living because I live in Sydney and my mum was living in Perth. I'd just gone home for Christmas and my best friend Zach was with me for Christmas, and it was his first a Christmas away from his family, and he's also from Montana. So when he lives in LA, he's lived there for years, but he's originally from Montana. So when he goes home for Christmas, it's like snow and cold, and I was like, "You're about to have the weirdest Christmas of your life." It's always like so hot on Christmas, and when we went there, and it was really really nice. And I remember my mum on Christmas Day, and it's weird when you look back at things. On Christmas Day, I went to visit her, and she was really, really tired. And she had been, because she got all this cheese platter stuff and all these things. She had all these Woolies bags. And she was like, "Oh, can you help me? I'm so hot." And it was really hot. And then she came and she was like, "I need to take a little nap." And I remember that day being like, that is so weird for my mum because she's so go, 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 go.
Mm.
I was like, "Okay." And then she had a nap, and then we like did the Christmas night and all the things were fine. But she was very tired on that trip. And I just thought maybe she's just tired because obviously it's Christmas, it's end of year, like, there's a million people wanting things from her. Then in January, I got this call, and I always get sick in January. I think it's because I go so hard in Christmas with my work, and then I do all the carols and all the things, and then I get home and I'm like, "Ah, I'm sick." And probably because I'm like, "Dad, look after me." And at the time, Mum. Um, I remember I was kind of like walking in Oxford Street. So weird because how you say you remember the exact moments. And Zach was standing next to me, and I got this message from my mum on Facebook saying, "Hey, I'm really, really sick. I've got a really bad cold, and I actually think I'm going to go into the hospital tomorrow because I'm really unwell." And I was like, "What? Like, that's so my mum, mums, they're just always okay. I mean, you are
Mhm.
one, like mums are the last person to get sick, think about themselves, and she was no different. And I was like, this is weird. I remember thinking that's weird. And she was so tired at Christmas. How strange. Anyway, so then about 4 days later, I'm like, "Mum, are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine. I'm just really unwell. Nothing else." I'm like, "Okay, I'm out here. I'm working." I was shooting this campaign for Westfield. I'd gotten this Westfield campaign where I was like the face of Westfield. It was so cool. And I was on like this block, lying down, and they would place all the products around me. Anyway, so I'm going in to shoot that campaign, and it's obviously a really, really big day. And I get a call from my grandfather, from my papa. And I'm like,
Her father.
her dad, yeah. I'm like, "Hi, Papa." And he's like, "Listen, I've just come back from the hospital with your mum. They found a tumor in her breast, and they need to check it. They think it might be cancerous." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "I think you should get on a plane. I think you should come home." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, 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 of course, yeah." So my mind's just reeling. I'm just like, what is about? What? Oh my god, what's gonna happen? And then I have that thought of like, what about if my mum does have cancer? Oh my god, what if she dies? Like, you have all of the
Mhm.
thoughts because you never think it's going to happen to you. And then I had to go shoot that campaign. So I'm shooting the campaign. My brother's there at the time because he was kind of my PA, and my bestie Zach. And I was like, told them, so they were like, "Okay, well, we're going to book a flight." So I shoot that campaign, and I remember Ray Morris was the makeup artist, and I'll never forget how kind she was that day to me because she had to keep fixing my makeup because I was just bawling, but I'm trying to like shoot this thing and not let everyone know on set and be professional. And she just kept going,
Mhm.
"It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine," like touching up my makeup. And then I had to go to the studio and record this Australia Day song. We were recording a version of I Am Australian with Jess Malboy and Justice Crew and all these people that I was contracted to do. So I'm in the studio. My brother's like, "We've got 2 hours and then we've got to go." John Foreman's in the studio. doing the vocal. Like, it was just such a weird day to find this out, like, because my life's going on as well. It's just so many crazy things. Anyway, and so I go home, I get on a plane, we fly in, we're on the red eye, fly in the morning, get off the plane, go straight to the hospital. And basically we walk into the hospital, and I've told my dad, but my mum and dad actually weren't together when my mum passed away. So I've kind of told my dad, this is what's happening. And he's like, okay, this is crazy. You just keep me posted on what you need. We've told Alex, my little brother, because he still lived in Perth. Get to the hospital. Basically, they said, we found a tumor, but it's benign. It's not cancerous. It's fine, right? In her breast. I was like, oh my God. Yay. Thank God. My brother and I are like, oh my gosh, thank goodness for that. They're like, but we actually need to speak to you and your mum. So we're going to need to get you into a hospital room, and we're going to need to have like a family meeting. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'll never forget it. So that's the day that my life changed. So we walked into the hospital, and basically it was my mum, me, my dad, my brothers, and I think my grandfather were all in the room, and they were like, listen, we've got to do some more tests, but basically it's spread, and we need to do a CT scan to see where, but it's looking like it's quite aggressive. And we're like, oh, okay, what does that mean? Like, what do we do? And they were like, we're gonna have to see. We don't know yet. And then cut to then it all just started happening really, really fast. Cut to a few days later, they basically said it's pretty much everywhere within your body, mostly a lot on your liver, but liver is a secondary. So we actually never know where the origin of the cancer was. We thought maybe it was here because of that benign tumor. We don't, but they never actually confirmed it. They thought maybe in the gut. But basically it cut to that, and they were like stage 4. And at that point they were like, it could be a few weeks that you have to live. And we were like, wait, what? And I just remember my mum being so strong. It was like there was a shift in the room in that moment where she was like, all right, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt. And she's like comforting me, because I was just crying. And, you know, doctors and their bedside manner is just horrendous. And this doctor was just like the coldest human. And I was like, what do you mean a few weeks? Like, what do you mean? It's gone from last week, my mum had a cold, to this. And it was just up and down and up and down. And basically, to put it in a nutshell, you know, she went in and out of coma because the chemo was so strong for her body, but that was a chance for her to live, and she wanted to chance it. So she went into this coma, and they basically said, you've got 24 hours. We don't know if she'll last these 24 hours. And that day I actually had a gig in Perth that I had to cancel, of course. And then it was 2 weeks, and then it was like she was fine for like 2 months. And then at the very end of the day, it ended up being 6 months that she lived, which was unbelievable after the 2-week thing, diagnosis. Yeah. And she actually died not from cancer. She died from an infection in her PICC line, because her body was just, I mean, she would have passed away from the cancer, but it ended up being that. But yeah, it was just like, so they never actually found out where their primary cancer was, which it was scary for my brothers and I, because we were like, we don't know. So we just have to have constant checkups. But yeah, it was just like a whirlwind. But that time, when I think about that time, I think when I'm going through hard times, I think, God, nothing's as hard as that.
You're so right. You know, we see in movies those moments.
Yeah.
You know, people being delivered the worst news of their life. And then, I don't know about you, but when I was standing in those rooms being delivered that sort of news, it was like I was having an out-of-body experience. Like I was watching it happen to somebody else. Like I kept going, who are we? Why are we here? Why are you here? What is going on? Like,
yeah.
And it's almost, I don't know whether that's like a protective mechanism or something by the body, because I think if you really let the full devastation of that land on you, you would just like crumble into a million pieces and like never rebuild. I felt like I was in this constant state of fight or flight. And in some ways, I almost feel like, I've never said this before, but I almost felt like I was saying to the universe, just hurry up and get it over and done with. It's like watching this wall of pain coming towards you. And like you say, they really don't know about the prognosis. So they told us 6 months, we had 2.5 years. Sometimes we were told weeks, then it would go months. Sometimes we were told months, then it was days. Like it is such a strange, it is such a strange experience, isn't it?
Oh, it's the weirdest thing because your life, you're living in this uncertainty with this wobbly ground underneath you, and you're like, how do I find any source of stability? And you really can't. You just can't because you don't know. And yeah, living in that is so tough. It's so, so tough. And exactly what you said, I really had that thought too, where I was like, just what is the outcome here? Like, just kind of give it to me. Give it to me because I'd rather just kind of know. Because it is that thing of like, well, maybe we do have longer at those moments. And then when it's shorter, you're like, you're also watching, yeah, the wall come towards you, but you're also watching the person you love the most be in pain. And I say this to a lot of people when they say like, what's the worst feeling, in what's the worst feeling you've ever felt? What's the saddest you've ever been? And I say, sadness is not the worst feeling. Helplessness is. That is the worst feeling in the world. The fact that you cannot help, there's nothing you can do to take the pain away. That's the hardest thing, I think. Like where you're just like, because I would do, but I'm helpless. I can't do anything. And that's really tough to get over, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
One of the weird silver linings about illness is that, well, terminal illness,
Yeah.
is that none of us know when we're going to go, right? Like I could walk out of this interview, go to cross the street to get a coffee and be hit by a bus.
Yep.
And I didn't get to say goodbye to anybody or say any of the things that were important to me.
Yeah.
One of the silver linings of illness is that if you're lucky, you do get at least a little bit of time to say the things. If I had to say goodbye to my children,
Oh, yeah.
if I had that opportunity, what are the things that I would most want them to know? And, I would be recording myself. Like, this is what you do when somebody's mean to you at school. This is what you do when somebody breaks up with you. This is what you do when you hate your job. Like, I would be like giving them these little life lessons for them to draw on. It's like very 2024.
No,
but did you get those moments with her where it was just you and her, and you were able to convey to each other what a great privilege it had been to walk each other through to that point?
definitely. I think that we really understood that. Yeah, I think that because once she came out of the coma, the first coma, which she was in for, I think it was 3 days, and so we're just all sitting around the bed, like, holding her hand and talking to her because they say that sometimes they can still hear you and guiding us through and just help saying we love you. And I remember when she came out of that, she had said like, oh, I feel like I've made a bit of a deal that I need to come back and tell my children how much I love them because I feel like they don't know truly how much I love them. And we were like, oh my, like obviously all crying mess. And then she really individually did tell us how much she loved us. And we really, really left that experience feeling so weirdly so loved in the worst time of life, feeling just so scooped up and taken care of by her and our dad. But, she just got to show us how much we really were, her life. And, everyone goes through weird times with their parents and it's not always perfect. And we got to rewrite some wrongs as well, I think, from both of us. And yeah, I really felt like I just felt that really pure love. And she always said like the gift of love is the most incredible gift you can give anyone, your time and your love. And I really felt like that I got to have that. And I went on about my days after that as well, being like, I'm so loved by the one person I need to be loved by, and not a lot of people feel that. Like I've met a lot of people that have a lot of turmoil with their parents, and I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful I have that.
It's so true. It makes me teary.
Yeah, I know.
That's not part of the deal. But it's so important. Like, I remember hearing somebody, I think it was David Kessler, who does a lot of work in the grief space, and he lost one of his sons who was like 18 or 19 or something.
Wow.
And I remember him saying, somebody saying to him, it's such a tragedy and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. And he said the greater tragedy would have been never being able to have him in the first place. I got 20 years with the kid. I got almost 40 years with my dad. You got almost 27
Yep,
years
27
with your mum.
Yeah.
It's not enough. It's not what we should have had.
No.
But to be able for them to get you to adulthood and to impart all of the wisdoms and to essentially pass the torch over to you is so much more than so many people get.
Yeah.
And you're so right to not only love them, but to really like them.
Yeah, is big.
That's huge. And it's kind of what makes it so unfair, right? It's like, why?
I know. She's like, I really liked that person. That person meant a lot to me. Why? But and what you say about the lesson, exactly right. Like I was lucky enough to have her for 27 years, and I was lucky enough to learn this lesson because there's some things that have happened in my life since then that I'm like, God, this would have been bigger than Ben-Hur for me. This would have been the biggest thing, and how would I move past this? And you just go, like you learn to let things roll off. You really do. Because you're like, well, that's nothing's as bad as that. Nothing's been as bad as that, and nothing will be as hard as that, and no loss is as great as that. So, you learn to live, and not in a bitter way. You just learn to be like, I'm going to let that roll off. I'm going to let that one roll off.
Sammi, I have loved getting to chat with you. Thank you for unpicking such an important and sensitive topic with me. I just think that the more that we can talk about, grief and loss and challenge, the better off we all are. There's such camaraderie in that. And I remember hearing someone say, and it's been kind of my guiding light through this grief journey, is that when you are in grief, it's like somebody hands you a heavy stone and you carry the stone around with you forever, and the stone never gets lighter, but you get stronger and better at carrying it around. And that's really stuck with me. I think that's so true. I think I'd subscribed to all of those notions of, well, time heals all wounds, and I thought that it would get less, and it hasn't. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that it doesn't, but that I grow stronger around carrying it. And I think for people to see that you can have a full, beautiful life and also be missing the person that you love more than anyone in the world, I think is such a gift. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you for allowing me to share it too, because I love that saying, by the way. Wow, that's so beautiful and so true. Because when it hit the 10 years, I had a lot of people asking me like, how, because so many people have been in our situations, they've lost their parents or loved ones. And I was like, it definitely feels like yesterday that it happened. Like it doesn't feel like 10 years. But then it also feels like 10 years because I haven't spoken to my mum in 10 years. Like that's crazy. But it is that thing of you get stronger. You learn how to deal with it. You learn how to cope. I mean, obviously really tough times are, I think, Christmases and birthdays and anything like that. They're always just weird. But you get stronger and you learn to, bring them back in. And so we do little things that we do within my family that, when we put the angel on the tree, that's her. So she's the angel on our tree now. And you learn things to get you through. But yeah, it really is time. And time doesn't always heal all the wounds, but time really does make it easier to go through it. And it will become easier.
Is she not just the biggest delight? You just want to squeeze her. She seems like such a nice person I just loved getting to have that chat with her. I hope that you took something out of that. I may or may not have gotten a little teary, as you probably heard. Okay, season 1 of Next of Kin is done. When I started Next of Kin, I committed to having 10 conversations, all with really different people. And in this series, we've talked about healthcare and grief and money and aging and alcohol and so much more. And I have loved bringing it to you. So when the time is right, I'll be back for season 2, bigger and better than ever. Watch this space. As always, the original home for these is nextofkin.substack.com. There you'll find articles, ways to connect with me. If we haven't connected yet on Instagram, please come over and follow me there. I would love to connect with you. Let me know what you thought of this chat and let me know what you thought of the series. Take care of yourselves and the people that you love most. Thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for your support. And I cannot wait to be back in your ears on the next season of Next of Kin.
This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a medical or qualified professional.